Well, hello friends, Marcus D coming at you with a brand new video, another brand new video for the Great Questions group. And the title of this one is The Origin of the World's Religions. And I actually referred to this topic in my previous video that I did, the two great classes of religions in the world. And so I thought since I did that, I would mention this to you, or I would do actually a video on it. This is going to be very brief and an overview because it's a rather extensive topic that a number of scholars have actually studied in depth. I did not. I just have kind of read an overview of what a lot of these people have done. Probably most extensively through a book. I know this is backwards, I apologize for that, but called The Long War Against God. A gentleman by the name of Dr. Henry M. Morris, who actually is deceased now, but founder of the Institute for Creation Research, was actually the chair of the engineering department at the Virginia Polytechnic, Virginia Tech, I guess is the way they call it now. But anyway, got this back in the day, actually signed it for me. But a gentleman that had done a lot of studies on this whole concept of evolution, which I got into. And as a matter of fact, while I'm thinking about this, I'm probably going to be doing a little series starting soon, perhaps right after this, of a little series of videos. I don't know how many there'll be, but just short ones giving you a highlight and an overview of what I've studied regarding origins and listening to the evidence presented by different groups of people. You know, I had heard over and over again that to believe in creation, you were just being irrationally religious, and if you believed in evolution, you were being scientific. Well, I found out that that's not necessarily the case. It's a question of looking at the evidence that is there scientifically and seeing whether that evidence lines up more with a creation model or a evolution model. And because I had studied that, what the evidence that was presented to me on this topic made sense to me very quickly. And I want to also remind you that from my perspective, I wanted there to be a God, all right? I got to the point where if you've listened to those introductory videos that I've done, I wanted to go where the evidence led me. But personally, I had a bias, if you want to call it that, that I was hoping that the evidence pointed to the fact that there was a God. If there wasn't, then I could choose to believe in him anyway, but I didn't want to make believe, all right? And so since I had found evidence that there was in fact a God, and then I had done some of the studies on had this God communicated, and of course I talk about these in those other videos, and I realized that he had primarily done this through this unique book called the Bible, and how archaeology and history had backed that up. Then when I learned some of this, this was another piece of the puzzle, if you will, that began to answer questions for me. And so again, I just wanted to share this with you because here's what scholars have found, all right? If they study the people groups around the world and they study the religions of the different people groups around the world, what they have found is there's some interesting similarities. And what's also interesting, folks, is if you trace the history back, what you will find is that these similarities become more pronounced, all right? It's almost like there's a convergence of all these different religions, all right? And particularly the ones that don't start off with a creation, all right? They start off with the universe already being here, but there are a variety of different thought processes, but primarily when you get all down to it, worshiping the creation, not the creator. They deny a creator. But anyway, when you go back, and a lot of these are what is known as polytheistic, meaning that they have multiple gods, all right? Or, no gods at all, but they have some kind of cosmic force. But again, there are all these different ideas that, again, begin to converge And it almost in a way, and that's what these scholars started finding out. And as a matter of fact, Henry Morris quotes another gentleman by the name of Alexander Hislop, who wrote a book called Two Babylons. I've not read that one all the way through. I read parts of it online. It's pretty compelling. But what they've done is they've traced these religions back. And what they've also done is traced where did these people groups come from that inhabit the earth now, these different ethnicities. All right. And it's interesting, too. And the languages that these different people speak today, where did they come from? The bottom line is, folks, again, there's convergence with all three of these topics. All right. The religions of these people, the origins of where these people came from, and the languages that all of these people speak today. And what's interesting is when the scholars studied this, and I was like, wow, this is pretty amazing. And what's interesting is you can trace it all back, and it seems to all originate in the Middle East. Now, this is hugely significant, all right? And what is, if we take the Bible at face value again, right, and we do a quick review on that, there was a very significant, a number of significant events. But early in Earth history, of course, God created the whole world, put people on it, our original parents, and then they began to multiply and multiply and multiply. The world was quite a bit different then in multiple ways, which, again, I don't want to take the time to get into right now. But the problem is, according to the historical evidence or the historical account, that's the word I want to say, but it is evidence, is that people began to become exceedingly wicked, evil. All right. As a matter of fact, the Bible says it got to the point where the imaginations of the heart was nothing but evil continuously. All right. And see, God has given us, and I've mentioned this before in other videos, this amazing gift of choice. It's a very dangerous one because we have this, what I like to call, sample of sovereignty. We can choose. All right. And unfortunately, in that what we call the pre-flood world, the people became they made a lot of the bad choices. All right, and the scripture talks about the fact that there was a global judgment on this world called the Great Flood, Noah's flood. All right, and what's interesting is I've studied that, probably do a couple or at least a video on that. On the evidence that it was, in fact, this global cataclysmic deluge, as it's been called. Just one quick factoid on that, all right? I remember when somebody pointed this out to me, and it was something so obvious, but I'd never thought of it before. And I remember they said, have you ever really looked at how much water is on this planet? And, there's a ton, all right? There's a ton of water. As a matter of fact, here's the little factoid. If you were to take the Earth and you were to smooth it out, raise up all the seabeds and put the mountains so it's completely smooth, the water that's on this planet would submerge the entire surface of the Earth to an average depth of 8,300 feet. Okay? Folks, that's over 1.5 miles of water that would cover the entire globe if it was completely smooth. Now think about that. All right? Why is that the case? But, all right, so let's assume for a moment there was this flood. Well, what ends up happening is, of course, there was this ark. I learned a lot about that. Not a little boat, big, huge barge, all the answers for the questions that I had. Okay, if there's really a flood, what's going on with this? But here's the point I want to get to, all right, just very quickly. Noah, his 3 sons, all their wives, and a bunch of animals, okay, were preserved. And they came out on the other side of the flood. The globe had dramatically changed. God told them to replenish the earth, spread out. A few of them did, most of them did not. All right. And what they did was they concentrated and they built a famous tower called the Tower of Babel. All right. And there's been a lot of different stories about what the purpose of this was. They were trying to reach up to heaven in case another flood came, or, they were trying to make a name for themselves, which they were. But what a lot of scholars have found, all right, is that this was primarily, okay, a tower that became not only a monument. They said, we want to get together, we want to do something. Look, folks, let me say this to you. This life is a test. It's been that right from the beginning. That's why God has allowed Satan and his angels, this demonic force, this anti-God spirit, that has inhabited this world. It caused everyone to go off the deep end, not caused them, but motivated them to do that off the deep end before the flood, and was alive and well after the flood, and quickly deceived all these people and got them all together, and they began to build this huge tower. All right, and what a lot of scholars believe is what this really was, folks, was a shrine. All right, that the demonic forces there, they are bent on people worshiping everything but the true God. That's what their goal is. Matter of fact, their goal is to drag all kinds of unsuspecting people into a hell that was never meant for people, because it's the ultimate expression of misery loves company, right? And so right away they went to work, all right? And there was a small godly line through Noah, but a bunch of these people, a bunch of the offspring got together and they began to build this tower, and they had one language. Isn't this interesting? And again, what a lot of scholars believe and was at the top of this tower, this shrine, okay, was that Satan and his associates there taught them this foundational pagan religion, which really was associated. And it's interesting because if you go back to the account in the Bible, you know, a lot of times it says a tower to reach unto the heavens. But a lot of the translators, and again, scholars that study that, say to reach is really not an accurate translation or interpretation of what the Hebrew words mean. It's really a tower unto the heavens. And what does that mean? Okay, these angels, these tremendously powerful demonic beings, okay, that want worship, all right, trying to get people away from God, this massive rebellion against God that Satan led his guys into, and now they're trying to get people to do. And it was a matter of fact, a lot of scholars believe it's the first time the signs of the zodiac came out. The astrology, all right, that pagan worship of the stars. There's a lot of this stuff. And again, I don't have time to develop all of this, but as I started hearing this, I'm like, wow, this is amazing. How did all that happen? All right. And so what they believe happened was that Satan and his associates actually taught Nimrod, who was the main guy behind all of this, and his associates, this main underlying pagan religious system right after the flood. And then, folks, when God had to come down, he didn't have to, but he decided, look, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to come down and I'm going to confuse the languages. Now, what he really did was he gave different people groups different languages. All right. As a matter of fact, there's no other people that have studied this, linguists and everything go back. There's no other kind of explanation. Where did all these languages come from? They can kind of trace them back to the Middle East, and that's it. The religious systems, they kind of trace them back to the Middle East, and that's kind of it. Where did they come from? All right. The people groups. All right. Let me just point out one quick thing. All right. A lot of times we hear this human races. There's different races of no. There's one race of human beings. All of the differences that we see, maybe a little color, little facial features, things like that. Folks, those are all superficial. We are human beings as long as we're healthy and properly functioning. We are interfertile. We can marry anybody that looks a little bit different than us, and as long as everybody, we're healthy and everything's working, we can get married and have kids. All right, that's because why? We're made of, the scripture even says that God made of one blood all nations to dwell on the face of the earth. These races that people talk about is an evolutionary concept. We'll talk about that later. All right, God made of one blood. All right, so when we trace all these people groups back, now think about this. All right, everybody's working together, of course. God comes down, he gives this people this language, these people this language, this large group of people, this language, small group of people. And what happens? They can't communicate anymore, okay? They didn't have all the Google Translate like we do now in Babel and all these other, it's interesting why they call that Babel. This language learning tool that's out, I guess, now. But so these people, what they had to do was they had to, because they couldn't communicate, they began to separate. And folks, think about this. And this is what these folks have been saying. When they left, they took that basic system that they were all taught, all right, originally at that tower, their religious system, this pagan system, as it were, all right, Babylonian, this mystery Babylonian system, original Babel, okay, and what they did was they carried it with them. And so now think about that. That's what they were saying, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. So as these people began to spread out over the earth, they took the remnants, their memory of this, and little by little they began to change. And they forget this, they'd add that, whatever. And so now we have all these modern religions, if you will, okay, that are in that class that do not believe in a personal creator God. And I'll just share this with you really, and I wish I could remember exactly where I heard it and what the deal was, but I remember reading, and if I come across it in my other studies when I'm doing my review, I'll let you know. But they were even talking about Islam. And I talked about the three modern religions and what they were sharing, and I was like, wow, I mean, I lived in Saudi Arabia, 90 miles from Mecca. I never thought about this. In the Islamic system, okay, you're not supposed to create an image of anything, all right, that represents anything. As a matter of fact, that's why if you go in the mosques, it's all very abstract. But they were talking about, again, the hosts of heaven from Babel, talking about worshiping, okay, and that's why we have these astrological signs now, the horoscope, okay, and the different Sagittarius and all these different things in the planets. And think about it. The ancient Babylonian religious system, the ancient Roman system, the ancient Greek system, the ancient Egyptian system, they almost had a one-to-one correlation, even the names of the gods. All right. And a lot of them were associated with planets. All right. It's amazing. All right. And if we had, this is a very, very extensive topic, which again, we don't need to get into. What I wanted to do is just give you the overview of this because again, this so resonated with me. All right. And so and what I was just mentioning was, okay, see, it's almost like they did an end run, okay, in Islam because they were talking about the moon, and you see this symbol for Islam being the moon. As a matter of fact, in the I use that coexist bumper sticker that you see all the time, and the very first symbol is the moon for Islam. Okay, and I always used to wonder about that, and they trace this, not me, they trace this through this. And again, I don't remember exactly how it happened, but this kind of end run where that Allah was the moon god. All right. So again, take that for whatever it's worth. But I was like, wow, there's this moon. All right. And there's something about even in Mecca, the Kaaba and the meteorite and that, where they go around and they're bowing down before this. All right. So what's up with all that? All right. But so you have all these different systems. And yet God shows, okay, Noah and then this lineage through. And then eventually, he began to give his people, he chose out a group of people. He gave them his law, and then ultimately he promised his Messiah. And then through that Messiah, he bridged the gap to everybody, all right? And now all the nations through Christ can be reconciled and invited into that kingdom, all right? But folks, let me just say something, all right? The same spirit of rebellion against God is alive and well. And again, why is it? Because we are being tested. Now, just to kind of wrap this up, somebody showed me this back a while ago, and I was like, are you serious? Okay, because I wasn't aware of it. Most of you know that there's a European government, all right? The European Parliament. What I didn't realize was the European Parliament building is in, or at least one of them, anyway, this particular one that I'm referring to, is in Strasbourg, France, all right? And and again, I apologize. This is kind of, I just have a printout of this, all right? But if you can look on the camera, I'll try to hold it right here, all right? That is, all right, this is the building, all right? Now, this little article is talking about this right here, this tower. What is it? What I mean, and if you look at it closely, all right, it looks like it's not finished. And it's designed to be that way. Now, what's interesting is it says this. The above is an illustration of one of the buildings from the European Parliament in Strasbourg, France. And it's called the Louis Weiss building, which includes a tower that appears to be unfinished. Below and on the left is a painting done in 1563 of the Tower of Babel by Peter Bruegel the Elder, a Flemish Northern Renaissance painter. Below on the right is the poster produced by the European Union symbolically depicting their mission. It contains the 12 stars of the EU flag and the rebuilding of the Tower of Babel with the motto, Europe, many tongues, one voice. All right? Note that the stars are shown as inverted pentagrams, an occult sign for Satan. Okay, I'm like, oh my goodness, all right? So here are these pictures. And again, I apologize that they're in backwards, but you can still see them, all right? So this is the 1563 painting. Okay, there's the Tower of Babel. I know it's backwards, but you can see it. And this is the poster, okay, for the EU. There's the stars, okay, upside down. And anybody that knows anything about that knows that's what that is. And then there's the little motto right there, if I can find it, okay, that says Europe, many tongues, one voice, okay? And what's interesting now, we go back here, and they're going to show the painting again. And now this time, all right, they're going to actually show a picture, a big picture of that, that building, that modern building from the European Parliament. Okay, now, and just to kind of show you one other thing too, okay? My dad and I, back a while ago, were watching the, I believe it was the French Open, all right, tennis thing, all right? And all of a sudden, right up on the TV is a picture, okay? And I oh my goodness, and I ran up and I snapped it on my phone, and there it is, folks. Okay, that's a live picture that I took from the TV. They weren't saying anything about it. They just flashed right up. And I guess where they hold that tennis tournament is close by. All right. Now, let me ask you an honest question. Okay. Why would you design a building that looks like that? I mean, seriously? I mean, all the myriad of different, I mean, it's even funky looking, you know? I mean, that it's not finished. And that's what it represents. Now, you can do with that what you want. You can make of that what you want. But to me, all right, you know, that, you know, that's a unique kind of a strange validation that, you know, and folks, you know, as I began to study more and more of this, I just realized what a battleground this world really is for the hearts and minds of people. The deception that is really going on out there, trying to get people to believe that just this one big cosmic accident, we are the master of our fate, the captain of our soul. We just popped into existence. This whole cosmos just popped into existence. We're just here for a little while to enjoy ourselves and do whatever we want and get, you know, go for the gusto, get as much as you possibly can because, you know, live for today because tomorrow you die. And the reality is, no, there's a creator God who is huge beyond our wildest imagination. I mean, the creator of all of this, this entire cosmos. And he's got a purpose for all this, and he's got a far, far greater destiny coming. And when you really start to look, as I said, the facts of this world and the dots start getting connected, and that puzzle, if you will, the framework, and then these dots start coming together, you're like, wow, it all fits together. There's answers for all this stuff. And folks, for me, it made my faith go through the roof, all right? And as I've said many, many times, you know, I started off this journey, I'm going to wrap up with this. I started off on this journey for Marcus D. because I had all these questions, all right? I wanted to know about these great questions. I wanted to know about the greatest question, what's coming next. And so I was studying all this for me, you know, never intended to share it with anybody. And as I've said many times, I'm doing this as a labor of love for those of you that I've connected with in the Great Questions group that are interested in those great questions like I am, all the varying degrees. And all I'm doing is taking some time and effort to do these videos and some of the other things I'm doing to provide a review to hopefully share some light and some connection and some clarity so that it'll help you like it's helped me, and it's revolutionized my life, folks. Yeah, I wanted to share that with you. All right, where did all these great religions of the world, and I use "great," you know, in quotations because you know, they're all, folks, I hate to say it, but it's the truth. They're all the deception. They're all deception, okay? And they're trying to get people to go blindly, you know, down the wrong trail. Because again, there's only one way to the Father, and I've talked about that, and that's through his Son, Christ. There's no other person that ever walked this earth like that man called Jesus of Nazareth. He wasn't the founder of a great religion. He was the means by which, through his death, taking our sin and dying on that cross and coming out of the grave the next day. No one's ever done that, okay? By our faith and trust in him, we can be washed clean and transformed from the inside out and fit for that new kingdom that's coming. So I hope every one of y'all have done that, and I hope that this, everything that's going on here, plus anything else you're doing in your studies, trying to learn about this, there's nothing more valuable, is strengthening you as we go along. Okay, so God bless you. Until next time, Marcus D signing off. Have a wonder-filled day. Bye-bye now. Okay, I got to turn this thing off now.